Hi, I'm Steve Mintz. Today I'm sitting in front of a $22 million street improvement project in the Green Lake, Wallingford area. This project paves about 6 miles of streets, adds 4 miles of enhanced or new bike access, and a buttload of ADA curb ramps. All right, let's windshield tour this thing. Let's go. The reason I'm in front of this project today is I want to talk to you about design, bid, build, project delivery. So design, bid, build is sort of the standard or the most common form of project delivery. And if you're in government procurement or municipal procurement, this is basically the standard way of doing things, and the rules are sort of built around this particular method. So design, bid, build really means two things. First thing is, the project is completely designed for the owner before any construction takes place. So the owner has a contractual relationship with the designer, and the designer designs the whole project to 100%. And the second thing is, when that's done, the owner puts the project out, typically to competitive bidding. And contractors take that completed design and put in bids for how much they'll charge to build the project. So it's first it's designed, then it's bid on, and then the low bidder typically gets to build the project. So it's design, bid, build. And this is pretty standard. It's usually thought of as the basic way of doing, especially public contracting. It's thought of as being very fair and very open because there's an open public bidding process to see who gets to build the job, and it's thought to be economical because you have a bidding process and the low bidder gets to bid the job. So that's typically what design, bid, build is thought of. But let's look at it in a little bit more detail and think about when it might be good to use and when it might be not so good to use. And let's think about coordination, speed, control, and risk. So first of all, coordination. Coordination between the designer, the owner, and the contractor on these kinds of projects can sometimes be difficult because typically the owner has a contract with the designer and the owner has a contract with the builder or the contractor. But the builder and the contractor, the contractor and the designer really have no relationship. And so anytime we've got a construction question during construction, that goes to the owner. The owner's got to come up with the answer, and if they need the designer, they got to go to the designer. So it's this sort of back and forth process. So the coordination can be a bit difficult when you go back and forth between design and construction, just because the owner more or less has to play a middle person. All right, so the second thing is speed. These contracts aren't really done to get things constructed quickly, and the reason is because they have to be fully designed before they're bid on and then constructed. So you don't get any benefit from going quickly or starting construction before design is done, and you have to go through the whole bidding process, award the bidder, and all that kind of stuff. So you're not going to do this if you're desperate for speed. But on a project like this out here, speed is important. You don't want to go super slow, but a design, bid, build approach will get this project built in a reasonable amount of time. The third thing is control. Owners often like design, bid, build projects because they can exercise tight control over the design, right? They get to work in a contractual relationship with the designer separately to come up with the exact design they want. So they can have a lot of control over design. And then when they turn it over to construction, the contractor is obligated to build exactly what's designed. So there's a fair amount of control over this, which is owners tend to like that feature. And then finally, there's risk. So this is kind of the standard by which risk is measured for other project delivery methods. But think about this. The owner works with the designer to design the project, and once it's designed, the owner accepts that. Now the owner actually has the design risk. So if a design doesn't work or it needs to be changed, that's the owner's money and that's the owner's risk. They have to pay for it, they have to get it done. From a contractor's perspective, that's not bad. You're not responsible for the designs. Over the design issue, you don't have to pay for it. Usually you can be compensated if you have to fix or change something. The other thing the contractor kind of looks at is, because this is fully designed, if you run into anything as a contractor that doesn't work or needs to be changed, you've got to go to the owner and essentially change the contract in order to be able to get something done. Now there are mechanisms to do this. Change orders is a way of changing the contract, but it is a paperwork process. It does take time, and this kind of project can actually lead to a fair number of disputes, because the owner might be thinking one thing when they designed it, and they might be thinking, this is how we believe contractors will build it, but a contractor may build it differently or may see other things that the owner missed. And so there's often a little bit of a dispute, or there can be at least negotiations to go back and forth about how something gets built. Now, as a contractor, you got to be very careful, because you bid this project, you estimated it, thinking you're going to build it a certain way, and if the owner wants you to build it a different way, you may actually lose money on that. So then you've got to go back to the owner and say, no, if you want me to build it that way, it might cost a little bit more. So because of this nature of designing first and then bidding it, where contractors have to figure out exactly how to build it, and then building it, where the owner might actually have some input or things might have to change. I mean, when don't things change in construction, right? You're going to come across something that you want to change. Especially if you're an owner, there's something at some point that you'll want to do a little bit differently once the construction started. Contractors have to be wary of that and have to understand how to work with an owner and understand what the process is to get things changed. I'm not saying it won't work, but just this is more prevalent in design, bid, build. All right, so that's design, bid, build. We went through some coordination, speed, control, and risk issues.